Megan Rapinoe yesterday, the fantastic lead player on the U.S. national women's soccer team. Apparently, was this Tuesday or Wednesday? I don't know what day it was, but she went on. Now, first of all, she went to the White House because they had a special day that they were coming to mark Equal Pay Day. President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden invited some people to talk on Women's Equal Pay Day. And Megan Rapinoe, the soccer star, the extraordinary women's soccer player, got up and spoke at the White House, and she had this to say. And this is fast. Let me pause this a second. Let me get this back to the beginning. She had this to say about Women's Equal Pay Day. Here we go. Here it is.
I'm a member of the LGBTQ community.
And I don't care. We're not talking about LGBTQ today. We're talking about Equal Pay Day because of the wage gap. Anyway, let's hear what she says.
With pink hair, and where I come from, I could have only dreamed that I would be standing in the position I am today at the White House.
Oh, you mean taking questions from reporters at the White House? Yeah, she's at the White House at the podium taking questions from reporters, which Joe Biden seems to not be able to do. Let me continue.
I'm also a professional athlete.
Yes, you are. And you're a good professional athlete in the sport in which you play.
And I've helped, along with all of my teammates virtually here today, one teammate literally here today, win 4 World Cup championships and 4 Olympic gold medals for the United States.
Fantastic! And we are so proud of you and the women's national soccer team. Outstanding performance in your sport. Fan-freaking-tastic.
And despite those wins, I've been devalued.
Oh!
I've been disrespected.
Whoa! That's awful. Devalued and disrespected. Please, elaborate.
And dismissed because I am a woman.
Oh, really? You've been devalued, disrespected, and dismissed. By who? I'm genuinely curious.
And I've been told that I don't deserve any more than less because I am a woman.
Okay, now, I'm curious. Who told you that? Who told you that you deserve less because you're a woman? Who told you that? Because you're a woman? Okay. Let's hear what else you have to say here. Who told you that? Anyway.
You see, despite all the wins, I'm still paid less than men who do the same job that I do.
Oh, despite all the wins, you are paid less than men who do the same job that you do. We're going to get back to that because that's a curious statement. I'm trying to figure out what she means by that. I'm confident that is a false statement. Oh, well, wait a minute. Paid less. Paid less? What do you mean by paid less? I'm curious. Anyway, let's go.
For each trophy, of which there are many, and for each win, for each tie, and for each time that we play, it's less.
Oh, she is talking about their contract. This, that's interesting that she says that. We're going to get, very good. Now I'm getting, okay.
And I know there are millions of people who are marginalized by gender in the world and experience the same thing in their jobs. And
let's see. That's fascinating. What she said is untrue. Okay. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. And this, I don't know, I may spend a lot more time in this than I had planned to, but I've been doing some research on this for a while, and I've been waiting for this moment. I think I've been waiting for this moment that this came out again, because what she's saying is only marginally true, and the idea that it's unfair is hogwash. Anyway, let's I'm gonna let her finish this little bit they put on CBS News.
And I know that there are people who experience even more, where the layers of discrimination
Really?
continue
Do they?
to stack against them.
Really? So she's saying that more people are that women are paid less in the same jobs, the exact same jobs, the exact same production, the exact same everything. Yeah. Well, I'm curious how she thinks that's true after the fact that they lost a lawsuit that explained why she's not telling the truth here. But let's keep going.
And I and my teammates are here for them. We on the U.S. women's national team today are here because of them.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about that a little bit. I responded to this on the old Twitter machine. And I again, it just brings up questions. So, and also as I watch people talk about this on Twitter and all over the place, most of them have no idea what they're talking about. Oh my God, the women's are paid less than the men's team, and they do the exact same game, and they play so much better, and they've won so many World Cup. I bet the women's team could beat the men's team because they're so bad because they don't win. Blah 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 blah. Yabba yabba yabba. Okay. Well, let's talk about that, because most people who comment on this have no idea, have done no research, and don't understand what the differences is between the men's team and the women's team and how they're paid and whatnot. First of all, the U.S. Men's National Teams Player Association and the U.S. Women's National Team Player Associations are separate bodies that negotiate their contract with USSF, which is the United States Soccer Federation. And they have negotiated different contracts, okay? They have their own collective bargaining with USF Soccer, and they have different contracts. Now, on the men's side, the men's national team, they are paid, and this is what they contracted with USSF, because really for the men's team, it's almost an honorary to be able to play on the men's team, because they don't treat it as a career or a job. Most of the men's team play soccer professionally elsewhere in the world, either in the United States or in abroad, where the soccer audience is huge for men around the world. It's probably the most popular single team sport in the world. And in fact, it edges out basketball, because basketball is getting big, but soccer far outsees. And the men's audience for the sport is immense, and hundreds of countries have men's soccer teams, and they put them in these World Cup matches, and there's whatever. So there is boatloads of money in men's soccer. In fact, the last World Cup cycle, the men's team or men's soccer federation generated $6 billion. Okay, now compared to the women's program, which not as many countries participate. There's not as many teams that play. But the women's, for example, the women's World Cup cycle last time through generated $121 million. Okay, 121 million versus $6 billion. Now, that's Now, that is the worldwide now, but let's just go back into the U.S. because the U.S. Men's National Team Players Association and the U.S. Women's National Team Players Association, they negotiated different contracts. The men's contract, the men are paid strictly through bonuses for games, ties, and wins. And they only get those bonuses if the men participate in a game. So when the men get chosen for the men's U.S. national team, and they go and play in these qualifying matches, and they play in the friendlies and all this stuff, they get paid based on if they play or not. So if, let's say, the whole team's in a match, and for whatever reason, one player on the sideline never gets into the game, he doesn't get paid, period. He doesn't get paid. He goes through all the practice, all the training, all the other stuff that they do to be on the men's national team, but they don't get paid if they don't play. Now, if they go and play in matches, they play in friendlies, and they play in qualifying matches and whatnot, every match they actually get into the game for. That is their contract. They get no benefits, no health insurance. They do get travel and whatever, but so do the women, and there's a little bit of a discrepancy in those, and I think it's fair to say that the women probably should, if they're going to complain about something, they should be able to get the same travel accommodations, although it's funny because even in the lawsuit, when they were talking about the differences in travel, a lot of it is because of logistics and where games are and how often they have to move and whatnot. But that's a whole different story. But let's just stick to pay. So the men are paid only if they play, and they only get paid in bonuses. Now, because they do get only paid in bonuses for wins, ties, and then just for playing in a game, their per game bonuses are good size. By the way, real quick, thank you, Paul Farrell, first sponsor of the show today. Paul Farrell with the link in SuperChats through YouTube, who says, are there men playing in the women's league? Otherwise, men aren't doing the same job as her. Well, yeah, that's the thing. You say you're doing the same job, and you want to go, the potential for the men to make more money is more, and I'll explain that in a minute. But it's not the same job because you're not playing against the same teams. It's different. It's a completely different game, the men's game. It's faster, more physical, more rough. It's still soccer, but you're not playing against the best teams in the world. Unfortunately, the best teams in the world happen to be men. Now, is that fair? Well, it's just physicality and genetics and the difference between men and women. Men and the women aren't the same, and I don't say they deserve less because they play women's soccer. I'm saying remember what soccer is. Soccer is entertainment, and entertainment dollars are generally are based on how many butts you put in seats, how many eyes you get watching your games, and half the world watches the men's World Cup. The ratings for the men's World Cup is immense. It's enormous. There's tons of money going through it. It's not as much for women's. Okay, now now in the United States, obviously the U.S. women teams, with its success, has had more eyes on television in the United States. But soccer's a worldwide game. Anyway, thank you, Paul Farrell, by the way. I appreciate the nice sponsor of the show. Thank you very much. All right, so now let's talk about the women's contract as compared to the men. Okay? The women's contract, when they negotiated their contract, they decided to have a little bit more safety in their contract, in the fact that if you make the women's national team, you automatically get paid a set amount of income per year or per cycle. I can't remember what it is. I'll show you in a second. And on top of that, then you get also bonuses for playing in the games, between ties and wins, and there's also bonus money in winning large events. For example, in the World Cup, there's a player pool that they win additional bonuses on top of on winning major events. So now it works out that if you have 20 games for the men and 20 games for the women in qualifying rounds, The dollar amount for the men and for the women, using each formula, would be exactly the same. Okay. However, because the women start out with $100,000 in salary before they play a game, their per game bonus is less than the men. Because, by the way, they also get health insurance. They get paid maternity leave. If one of them gets pregnant during a cycle, they get paid maternity leave. They get all sorts of benefits. There's some, I don't know, 401k, they get retirement plans, they get all kinds of stuff the men don't get at all. So the compensation for the women, if you go through the last World Cup cycle, it was actually higher for the women. She says they get paid less. Oh, she's talking about the bonuses per game. She doesn't include the $100,000 that each player gets before they even step on the field. That's guaranteed, even if they never play a game. If they cancel the entire World Cup series, their $100,000 is guaranteed whether they play or not. So they have a safety net of income no matter what. So look, she's talking out of her hind parts, but it is a fact that per game, the men's bonuses are higher for games, ties, and wins, because they don't get a salary to start out. Also, the other thing that USSF, United States Soccer Federation, does for the women, they have a professional league in women's soccer. And if you are on the women's national team, and based on how many years you have played on the women's national team, they also subsidize the salaries in the women's professional league for the women who are on the national team. So, for example, Megan Rapinoe has been on the national team several years. She makes another $65,000 a year in her professional soccer league from the United States Soccer Federation. Her professional soccer salary is subsidized by the Federation. That is another benefit the men who play on the United States men's team does not get. So when she says, well, we're getting paid less for the exact same game, or for doing the same job, she's only talking about the bonus program. The women are compensated, however you want to say it, more for this particular job. That's not the same job. Okay, so now here's what they're also complaining about on the women's soccer team. Because the men play only for bonuses, if the men played the same number of games and had the same number of wins as the women's team, the men would get paid a whole lot more than the women's team. But it has nothing to do with USSF, United States Soccer Federation. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the fact that in the big tournaments, World Cup, Olympics, whatever, there is prize money bonus payments to the players. And it's based on a percentage of the revenues of the event. So, for example, in the women's game, which generated $121 million over the last cycle, the total player pool, the part that goes out in bonuses for playing in that event for the entire event, is a total of like I think it's 20%. I don't know. It's in the document that I'm going to give you, is like 20% of the total revenue or something. It's not like that. In the men's World Cup or cycle, it's 9%. But because the men generated $6 billion with a B dollars, the men have absolutely a potential to make more money. And that's what their complaint is on the women's team. Well, if the men would have done this and won the World Cup, they would have made way more money than us. Well, that's kind of because you're not playing the same game that generates the same revenue. And I made the example. Here's a good example. So let's take, for example, now, but they think they should get the same pay as the men if the men did the same thing, right? Well, let's give you an example of that maybe she would be able to understand. So let's say, for example, Post Malone. That's a current music star out there. If you're not familiar with him, he is a music star. And let's say Post Malone decides to have a world tour of concerts where he goes to 30 cities, okay? Post Malone's going to 30 cities around the world on a concert tour. And at the same time, Beyonce goes out and does a world tour, 30 tour dates around the world. Do you think Post Malone and Beyonce would receive the same pay? They're doing the same job. They're going out and singing in front of people over 30 concert dates, right? You would assume that they would be paid the same, right? No? Why not? Because it's very likely that a Beyonce tour over 30 cities worldwide would probably have to be held in stadiums filled with 100, maybe 100,000 people per show. Now, could Post Malone do a stadium tour around the world? I don't think so. He might be able to fill in, 4,000 or 5,000 people in a venue on some dates. Maybe in a bigger city, 10,000. No. You're damn skippy that Beyonce would be paid more. Well, now let's not say that the U.S. men's national team is Beyonce, but if they were the number one team in the world in the men's game, they would be Beyonce and not Post Malone. I hate to break it to you, but the U.S. women's national team is Post Malone. Great at what they do, but don't put as many butts in seats. So, and the bonus structure for the women is lower because that's the revenue they generate. I laugh because I hear this in the NBA. In fact, Megan Rapinoe's wife, Sue Bird, also has complaints that the women in WNBA, think they need to make more money, and that's, because the men are paid so much compared to what the women make. Well, that's because the NBA not only generates almost 50 times the revenue as the WNBA, but the NBA also subsidizes the WNBA. The WNBA in 20-some years of existence, 25 years, 26, I don't know, still has never made a profit, never had more revenue than expenses, even though they have attempted to raise player salaries. It's a different game. Because I'm pretty sure that, and I love basketball, and I will watch WNBA games, but it's not the game that the men's game is. It's not even the game that the college game is. It's not even the game that AAU teams play. I enjoy it for what it is, because I love basketball, but it's not as good of a game as the men's game. And that's just because of physical differences. Just is. It's a different type. even though it's the same game, very same job, same practices, same skills involved. But the men's game is more enjoyable to me because it is completely a higher level of basketball. And most people who spend their entertainment dollars like to spend their entertainment dollars. If they can, they will spend their entertainment dollars on the highest level of play they can. And unfortunately, the women's game is not the highest level. It's a great to watch. The Women's World Cup is certainly fun to watch and fun to root on your country. But the idea that the United States Soccer Federation is paying them differently because they're women, those women negotiated their own contract. And this was a subject of a lawsuit that was adjudicated in 2020. And in fact, I'll put this in the tabs. United States District Court, Central District of California. Let's see. This is in Alex Morgan et al. Alex Morgan, the other star. Alex Morgan's the one who scored a lot of the goals. Megan Rapinoe scored a lot of the goals, and Megan Rapinoe was the MVP of the World Cup last time. Anyway, or was it Alex Morgan? One of the two. She's a fantastic women's soccer player. Versus the United States Soccer Federation, and in this case, it lays out the factual background, how the men's national team is played, how the women's national team is played, their contracts that they negotiated. And in this negotiation, the women's national team, when they figured out, oh, well, hey, we've been winning all these games. If we had the men's contract, we would have made a lot more money from the USSF. Remember, the bonus, they're not even counting the bonuses they played in this lawsuit. And they went back and tried to renegotiate this many times. They went to the federation and said, well, hey, if we have the men's contract where it's just strictly bonuses, well, we would make a hell of a lot more money, right? Or we'd make more in bonuses. And since we win more, we would make a lot more money, right? And so the U.S. Soccer Federation said, well, yeah, okay. Well, then, okay, we'll give you the men's contract. That's fine. And the women were like, oh, whoa, wait a minute. But we still want the guaranteed money. We just want the bonus structure that the men have. Well, U.S. Soccer is like, wait a minute. No. See, this guaranteed, the reason your bonus structure is less than the men's because you get $100,000 to start before you even put your feet on the field. And they're like, well, no, and plus we pay you get all this health insurance and all the other benefits that we pay for. And the overall compensation for the women is higher than the men. But they're like, oh, no, wait, no, we just want the bonuses to change, not the guaranteed money. So, yeah. So anyway, they lost this lawsuit, and I'll just leave it up. You can read it. It's very interesting reading because it really goes through the details of how the contract here. Anyway, the main point of that is the women's national team negotiated their contract to include guaranteed salary benefits, including health insurance, bonuses, and bonuses for games and wins by and their professional league salaries are also subsidized by the Soccer Federation. The men's team plays strictly for bonus money for games and wins. And her complaint is that the women don't make as much bonus money per game as the men, but that is the way they negotiated their contract with the Soccer Federation. They chose guaranteed money and benefits, safety, over the higher risk of potentially more money through bonus only compensation that the men receive. That is the contract they negotiated. Her complaint and the lawsuit that they lost is that they could have made more money if they would have negotiated a different bonus only contract the men have. In other words, the women want the same bonus structure as the men's team that includes no guaranteed salary or benefits, and they want to keep the guaranteed salary and benefits of the contract they originally negotiated. Yes, the men's team made more in bonuses per game over the same period as the women. And during the time that the women had that success in the World Cup and Olympic play. However, the women their total compensation, salary, bonuses, and benefits has been higher than the men's over the last cycle on a per game basis. Now, it's in everything I said is in that summary judgment, but I'm still trying to understand exactly who told Megan Rapinoe that she deserves less because she is a woman. It is also factually incorrect that she is paid less than the men who do the same job she does. The 2019 Women's World Cup generated about $121 million of revenue, and the Men's World Cup generated $6 billion over the last cycle. Another complete team the women's team has is if the men had done as well as the women, the men would be paid much more. That's due to the fact that bonus pools are related to the revenue generated. So in the end, soccer is an entertainment business, and people get paid based on revenue generated. The argument that women deserve equal pay in sports is only true if those sports generate the same revenue. And I'm pretty confident. Well, I've already made my Post Malone argument. Anyway, enough about that. I'll leave those open. All right. Hey, this is PDawgKnight, and thank you for watching this clip from my weekday show, The Morning Night Live. If you like what you see, the best way you can help me out is by clicking that arrow directly below the video window and sharing this out on your favorite social media. I really appreciate you spreading the word and helping me grow this channel. Catch the main live show Monday through Friday at 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central on YouTube. Finally, if you haven't already done so, click the like button and then subscribe to this channel, and be sure to click the bell that pops up afterwards so you'll be notified when I post new videos or go live. Other ways you can support the channel can be found in the description down below. Thanks again, and until next time, I'm PDawgKnight, and I'm out of here.